My name's Luke Bullus. I'm on a BiG Scuba podcast. I'm the diving officer and trustee for a small charity in Cornwall called Fathoms, who specialise in ghost gear recovery work around the Devon and Cornwall coastline.
Hello everybody, welcome to the BiG Scuba podcast. My name is Ian and this is episode 196. Straight from the top, I am not alone, I am with
Gemma. I'm the other co-host.
Yes.
So welcome to the BiG Scuba podcast.
I did remember your name actually.
Did you?
I did. Straight from the top, I want to say these episodes are sponsored by the lovely people at 90. They are beyond technical.
They are. So this is an episode we are talking to somebody from Fathoms, which is a UK charity.
Yeah, so we've got another guest for you. His name is Luke Bullus.
Bullus. Yes, he's the diving officer and one of the trustees for the charity Fathoms, and they work in the Cornwall and Devon area recovering ghost gear.
Everyone's in Cornwall and they're on that coast, aren't they?
They are. There's
so many diving companies and people who are doing great stuff in the Cornwall area, and Fathoms is another one. And it's good that in that whole area of like that south coast and Cornwall and Devon, there's this whole collection of people doing stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
Good stuff.
Yeah, might be to do with their visibility. They've got more all year round diving down there.
Yeah, which is really good. So we'll have a little chat about what we've been up to, and also there's quite a lot going on in the diving world.
You've got a big list there, haven't you?
I have got a big list of the stuff that I've seen. And talking about somebody in Cornwall, so Scuba Grace, who we've had on a couple of times, and also with her dad. Many people do know in the diving world. She is looking for people to make contact. If you're a photographer, if you're in the Cornwall area, make contact with her, because she's after doing some studies. And if you've got love the ocean and you take photos, things like that, yeah, then make contact, because you could help her with her studies.
Yeah, and the best place to have a look her up is Instagram, and her Instagram handle is scuba.grace.
Yeah, so do that. What have you been up to?
We got in the pool last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
That's the first time we've actually got underwater this year.
Drank the scuba honey in as well.
Yeah, so the intention was just to get some skills sorted.
Yeah, just go through basic skills, because I didn't want, particularly with honey, and for us, but if you aren't diving over the winter, and honey's only 14, I didn't want it to go from her last dive through to maybe, like, I don't know when she'll get in, maybe when it warms up a bit, but potentially a few months where she hasn't dived, and then you kind of got to redo all these skills and all that. So it's a good opportunity to get in the water and just go through basic skills.
We did the same thing last year and it worked really well, didn't it?
Yeah.
We just got in maybe once a month, do the usual sort of out of air scenarios, mask clearing, and just having a bimble about, and putting the gear together as well. It's all, refreshing the mind.
Yeah.
And then we also did an unboxing for the Pathfinder Gen X strobe from NARC 90.
Mega bright.
So there's a YouTube video, so you can watch the YouTube video at the BiG Scuba channel.
Yeah. And
then we got it in the water and tested it out on the different, it's got several different settings for different strobe. So there's a search and rescue, there's a continuous light, but it's very bright.
Oh yeah,
it's very bright.
It is, and very well, as it's come from NARC 90, it's very well made. Bulletproof, you could drop the thing on a rock and that'll still work, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it's got a good thing at the bottom of the strobe where you can attach it to a line. You've got a nice, real strong attachment to it.
It's predominantly meant for attaching to a line, generally, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you could, if you're on a dive boat and you're doing night dives, you could attach it to a rope and drop it down so people could see where they got to go to. Or if you're in a cave or in a wreck and you're lining out, you could attach it to that. And I tell you what, when you go on that YouTube, have a look, and there's 5 different settings that you can put it through, and it is seriously bright, even in the deepest murkiest of conditions, it's rated to 300 metres.
You definitely see it.
300 metres. Most people aren't going diving down 300 metres, aren't they? But it's good to know if you drop it in the sink, it's going to work. That whole thing, if you're down at 100 metres, that light is going to get you home.
It is, yeah. So you can look the strobe up. It's active to buy on the Narked at 90 website, or give the guys a call. And you won't be disappointed. It's bulletproof.
Yeah, so do that. There's some congratulations to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spoke to these guys when we were very early on in the podcast world. And I remember talking to them, and they'd just got together, hadn't they?
Yes.
So congratulations to Christina and Kevin, and congratulations on their anniversary.
Yes, and it's great. They follow us on the podcast. We've spoken to them, and we keep in touch. On a regular basis. So, and they do some great stuff.
They do. So, and also congratulations to Christina, because she has been. She's joined the others for Beneath the Sea, a class of 2025, which is really good, for all the work that she does with sharks. So she's joined Dr. David Cherish and Norm Bohannon. So look those guys up, and look up Beneath the Sea, and they are now class of 2025.
Yeah, and watching Christina and Kevin's progress ever since we've been in touch with them, and it's amazing things what they're doing now with like the children, the kids at sea, isn't it? Kids school, and just getting that awareness out there to everybody, and being really active on doing the shark sort of liverboards as well. Well, it's getting their name out there, and of looking after all these animals in the sea. And Kevin's amazing photography.
And
of Christina.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Okay, and also I see as well another previous guest, Dawn Kanagas, who's the director of scientific research at Deep. She's joined the Women Divers Hall of Fame talk of the Voices Beneath the Waves, which starts. It's in America, and it starts on February the 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're in that area, go along and enjoy that talk.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be on the social media channels as well.
Yeah. Another previous guest. Our previous guests all really busy doing stuff. So Dave Kennett of NARC, which is Neptune's
Army of Rubbish Cleaners.
Yes, who based in Cornwall. Devon.
No, Wales. Anglesey way, wasn't it? They were in South Wales.
Oh yes,
but they're just round the coast
on that west coast. Now he's just put on Facebook as well about the dates for beach cleans for this year. So if you're in the area, and make contact with Dave and get along. Yeah,
he does beach cleans and diving trips as well. So for the people that are more experienced, recovering, ghost gear, lost fishing.
Well, he's just done one, and see all the stuff they've hauled up, loads of stuff.
Yeah, it's certainly
really good. So well done to David and his army of beach cleaners. And also going on at the moment is the Scandinavian Dive Show.
Yeah, and we've got the one in Holland going on at the moment as well.
What's the one in Holland?
Expo Houten. Yeah, so we've got Dean Martin. I've seen he's posted about it. Chris Mears is there. So
previous guests.
All the dive shows are kicking off now.
Yeah. So we've got that, and then you've got the Scandinavian one. So that's at the Swedish Exhibition and Congress Centre, and then we've got the Go Dive Show at the end of this month as well.
1st and 2nd of March up at Stoneleigh near Coventry. Yeah. So
I think you've got to get tickets because they do sell out.
Yes, and you can either go for the Saturday, Sunday, and they do sell tickets for both days.
We go
as well.
every year, and it's a really good show. Really enjoy that show. Always a friendly show, and you've got a pool there. You can have a go at some side mount, and I think you can have a go at a rebreather there as well, can't you?
Yeah, we'll have to look at the website
sorts of stuff that's going on, and all the usual names in the UK diving world and further afield are there. and it seems to get bigger every year.
Yeah, and it was significantly bigger last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a whole section there, wasn't there, for UK diving, and well, the 2 days just go so fast.
Yeah, and our friends at Not to 90 are going to be there this year.
Yeah,
so
they'll be there.
Have a stand there this year.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So and we'll be there, and hopefully get a few interviews along the way. All going well.
Yeah, we'll be there with our cameras and
Yeah.
our microphones.
Yeah, so do come say hello if you see us. We'll be wandering around. What else? Oh, we've just booked our trip to Lundy, so we'll be making a trip over to Lundy, see the guys at Lundy. Looking forward to that later in the year.
Yeah, that's August, and then we've also got the Farns
The
all
usual
booked in.
pilgrimage to Farns, yeah.
Yeah, so they're the 2 trips, but we'll try and get some other trips in. Hopefully do Swanage or Chesil Cove again.
Yeah.
And then if there's any more trips further up north to some dive sites.
Yeah, so it should be good. So hopefully we'll be getting out and about along the way, really.
The weather's improving, so I even got out on a paddleboard yesterday, which was lovely. So
nice.
Yeah, just to get back on the water rather than under it. So
yeah, it's good to do that. Yeah, and then apart from that, just trying to keep fit, healthy.
Yeah, you're
and well.
crossfitting and running. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
doing that. Yeah.
Trying to keep injury free.
Yeah, got my. I haven't booked it yet, but I will have another dive medicals before I'm back in the water with dive mastering. So I put the dates in with Crystal Seas. So usually that kicks off around about April, sort of around about Easter time. So it depends on what other dates everyone else put in, because it's not, it's a good number of people put dates in to support Crystal Seas. So we'll see.
And we're on the upward slope now. This is 2nd of February
Yay.
2025. Mornings are getting lighter, evenings are getting lighter. We've got more time to do stuff.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, which is it's such a nice feeling now, isn't it?
Yeah. If you're in the water anytime soon, let us know where you're diving. It's always good to hear from people. And if you've got any targets of stuff that you want to learn or new skills that you particularly want to do, that'd be good to hear from you as well. So if you're thinking about doing side mount or thinking about getting into a rebreather this year, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be really good.
Yeah, and if you've got any suggestions for guests, we're always open to have an intro and make contact.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be good. Right, should we get our guest on?
Yes, so enjoy our conversation with Luke Bullus from Fathoms Free, where we hear all about his diving journey and all about Fathoms Free.
And when you've done that, go to their website, give them some support, because they're a small little what's the word? Charity, doing great stuff. So, but they could always do with more support. So, especially if you're in the area.
Yes, and Luke will be doing a chat at the Go Diving show as well. So
you'll
be able to meet him there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so thank you for downloading and enjoy Luke Bullus from Fathoms Free. Welcome to the BiG Scuba podcast.
Yeah, welcome.
So one of the first questions we always ask our guests at the very beginning is how did your journey in the underwater world begin?
So it actually started with a leaving gift from a previous employer. About 15 years ago, I decided to change jobs, and they couldn't think of anything to get me. So I planted the seed with someone and said, I'd really love to try scuba diving. So my first experience was actually in a swimming pool in Farnham or Farnborough, I can't remember which one it was, which, to be honest, wasn't really that exciting. It was lots of plasters on the bottom of the swimming pool and everything else. And I really enjoyed it, but the person or the partner I had at the time didn't. So it was actually a couple of years later, I went to Turkey, and that's where I really got the bug. I ended up going back 3 times that year to dive, and unbeknownst to me, that probably wasn't the best diving that I could have experienced in Europe with regards to seeing things. It was lovely warm water and everything else, but compared to, the likes of Malta and places like that. But yeah, so it's been about 15 years really. And then UK diving, 2016, my partner at the time decided to move to Cornwall from where we were in Wiltshire. And she said, it's a little bit colder, but there's actually a hell of a lot to see down here. You really should get a dry suit.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of that really. And a few years later moved down and never looked back. So yeah.
Wow.
This episode is brought to you by Narked at 90, the cutting-edge pioneers in the world of diving equipment. Meet the founders, John Routley and Brent Hudson, who have logged thousands of mixed gas dives over the past 3 decades. About 20 years ago, these experienced technical divers combined their passion for diving and engineering skills to create Narked at 90. Whether you're new to diving and ready to take it up a notch, have a fair amount of experience, or are considering a transition into technical diving, we highly recommend Narked at 90. They're ready to advise on the best equipment and setup for your personal and commercial needs. Narked at 90 also has extensive hands-on experience with shearwater and ratio dive computers, being the longest-serving UK service centre for these brands. They're ready to offer technical support, servicing, repairs and upgrades for all shearwater and ratio computers past and present. In addition to shearwater and ratio, Narked at 90 stocks and supports many other brands such as DiveSoft, JJCCR, Hollis, Revo and Kiss rebreathers. The diving community is always enthusiastic about Narked at 90 and it's easy to see why. Here are just a few reasons. Full head servicing for rebreathers from various manufacturers, bespoke cable assemblies, advice on specific fitting requirements, suggestions and guidance for home builds, computer laser cutting and engraving, CNC milling and turning, pressure testing to simulate 400-metre dives. We're thrilled to partner with Narked at 90, a company that has ignited so much passion for diving and has been incredibly supportive and innovative in producing and selling dive equipment. Visit narkedat90.com to see why they're a renowned name in diving. Stay updated on their insights and offers by following them on social media. Just search for Narked at 90 on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and hit that follow button.
That's good. Why is there always plasters in public swimming pools? There's always you jump in and there's always a dodgy plaster floating about somewhere. Isn't there? Why is that? So, you've been diving a fair while, abroad and UK. So what sort of level diver are you now then? And what agency?
I started with Paddy, as I think a lot of people do. It's a bit like a Stanley knife. You you just think of, well, a lot of people that don't know much about scuba think of Paddy when they say, oh, I'm going to go and get my Paddy in Thailand or wherever. Um, and I only actually stayed at an advanced open water for a number of years. And
Yeah.
then when I started diving in the UK, a little dive shop in Penryn on the south coast of Cornwall, there was a guy in there that was a BSAC instructor. And I started diving with them, and he was quite nice about it. But he said, if you really want to get into UK diving and plan diving and whatnot, then you ought to cross over and join us on the dark side. And I joined BSAC, did my sports diver crossover, dive leader, um, and I've never actually got it signed off, but I am a BSAC advanced diver. It's
Yeah.
just with the chaos of COVID, I never actually got everything pushed through, but I should do that really.
Yeah. So do you dive single tank, twins?
I usually use twin 300 bars.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm quite a big chap, so it gives me the extra little bit of gas, and I
Yeah.
can take a lot of lead off as well. So it's quite a nice balanced setup. And I'm quite into my underwater photography, although my pictures aren't brilliant. So it's quite nice to know that, although I shouldn't say this, I don't check my air as much as I should. I do look at it obviously, but you know that you go in with plenty, and as long as you're not doing anything silly, you're okay. So.
I've not tried two sevens, so that must be. Is there quite a bit of difference in weight
Yeah, so the
between like
300
having
bars are actually, yeah, they're thicker, obviously for the extra pressure.
yeah,
So they are significantly heavier than a set of twin 300 bars. So you can take quite a lot of lead off, and because it's distributed evenly up your back, um, a lot of people I know don't dive with any additional lead at all. It's quite a nice way of diving. Unfortunately, there's not that many dive shops that will actually give you a 300 bar
that was my
fill.
next question.
Yeah. So I'm quite lucky. Again, Seaways in Penryn, you can leave your cylinders with them. They'll fill them up, and then the next day they'll top them off again for you, which is
Yeah,
quite nice. So yeah,
because
you're guaranteed to get a full.
yeah, as you said, there isn't many places that will go to 300. So when you go elsewhere, do you then have problems getting them filled?
Yeah, a lot of compressors will switch off at 250.
Mm.
So then you have to accept you haven't really got any more gas in a 15-litre single cylinder.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So do
But
you get out diving regularly?
yeah, so as well as the Fathoms Free side of things, I'm a member of Peninsula Sub Aqua Club down here,
Mm.
and also that there's so many private boats and people you get to know and whatnot. I was a regular on the late Mark Milburn's boat Atlantic, well, company Atlantic Scuba that he had down here in Falmouth,
Yeah.
and I would go out diving with him every Friday night, every Saturday.
Wow.
Um, it was I really got the bug. In fact, in 20, when was the first year of COVID? 2020, I think.
Yeah.
2020, yeah.
Yeah, I separated from the girl I moved to Cornwall with. And I was quite miserable. And Mark, bless him, said, "Well, we've just opened this B&B. Um, why don't you spend the summer here?" And he charged me a nominal fee to stay there, and then I got free diving.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
because there were so many people cancelling from up country, that his charter boat, like every weekend, he'd normally have clubs that would come down.
Mm.
And at the last minute, they'd say, "Oh, three of us have tested positive. The other two don't want to do the drive, etc., etc." So, um, yeah, I spent the whole summer with him, and I did 100 odd dives just with him that summer, yet alone
Wow.
with everyone else. So it's the best cure for sadness, really. If you
For a
if you ever need to
breakup.
get over anything, just go diving.
Yeah. Get underwater and away from
Yeah,
everyone. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how did the relationship with Fathoms Free start?
So I actually originally joined Sea Shepherd. I've seen them at a dive show, and I ended up having some sinus surgery. I can't remember when that was now, probably 7 years ago or something. And I ended up watching every episode of Whale Wars. I don't know if you ever seen
Yeah.
any of those episodes where they were sort of blocking the Japanese whalers and whatnot. Um, and they launched their GhostNet campaign in 2018, which caught my attention because I was doing a hell of a lot of diving down here, and it was an accepted part of the landscape, nets and pots everywhere. And it
Right.
was quite weird, really. And until it was actually pointed out that it really shouldn't be there, you're kind of blind to it.
Yeah.
It's in front of you, but you've become so used to it as being part of the landscape. So I joined them, and then we locked down. Um, and so the first year of their campaign, um, sort of taking off really, they didn't do a lot, not in the south. They did a lot up north. And Fathoms Free actually contacted them and said, we're short of divers. They'd had some changes behind the scenes with them and a little bit of a fracture with people going off and doing different things. So it was through Sea Shepherd I got put in touch with Fathoms Free, and it was around the same time as the breakup. So I just, as well as diving all the time with Mark, I then had a completely new group where we were doing something positive. Um, and it sounds a little bit cliche, but it's like diving with a purpose. You actually, as well
Yeah.
as diving, you really feel like you're making a difference. And I mean, that summer we were out quite often. We cleared quite a number of wrecks in Falmouth Bay and some reefs on the outside of Falmouth Bay. And we even caught the attention of Simon Reeve, the producer.
No.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen that episode well,
I,
series in Cornwall with Simon Reeve.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a little, I think a 5 minute segment or something on there. And it was just by pure chance because whenever we found anything, we'd clear it straight away. Um, and they said, "Oh, we'd love to come and film you in a couple of months' time." We thought, well, if we find a net that's actually killing things, we don't really want to leave it there.
Mm.
And so about 3 days before they came down, Mark said, "Well, look, we'll just visit lots of different sites of the Busy's Reef and sort of best of luck." And the idea was if we didn't find a net, they just interview us and talk about things. And we actually found two, and one of them was about 200 meters long, a really big tangle net full of
Gosh.
life. So we left it there for a day, and then we went out with them, and that made quite a good part of their episode, and that was it. Then the the guy that's now the chairman of Fathoms Free, he said, we'd really like you to come on board, and I was a bit hesitant at first. And yeah, fast forward 4 years, and it's pretty much all I do now. Really, it's a bit sad.
So is it a job or do you have a
No, none
standard?
of us are paid.
Mhm.
I've got a full-time job, completely unrelated to diving. I work in the It's called. Oh, I'm a grain processing engineer, so it's everything post harvest. So it's all arable farm
Oh,
related.
okay.
So it's as far detached from diving as you could get, really, literally on the land.
So
It's all
do you
grain.
decide what goes to like hops and it goes to beer
Yeah,
and things and
precisely.
bread
Yeah,
and things? Yeah. Oh
yeah. So
wow.
it's all the grain cleaning and sorting equipment. So barley, for example, you'd want different protein and starch contents. For beers and wheat, you have different proteins and starch contents for bread and biscuits, and um, it's removing weed seeds, and it's a real small niche industry that I
Mm.
fell in by chance during the well, just before the recession back in 2006.
Okay.
I was literally desperate for a job, and so applied for everything. And this, as a trainee, came up, and yeah, luckily it gives me quite a lot of flexibility to spend a lot of time volunteering for Fathoms Free. So it's worked out quite well in the end, really.
Yeah,
Real.
that's good to have a contrast as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go on.
I was going to say Fathoms Free. So when did they originate? Have they been going a number of years?
Yeah, so this 2024 was their 10th year.
Mm.
So they started in 2014, or they were started by a guy called Rob Thompson, who's no longer with us. He left in at the beginning of 2020, hence the fracture I mentioned earlier. Rob Thompson, he was really into sort of conservation and whatnot. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you what his day job was at the time. I didn't know him back then. And he organised a beach clean and on a local beach to where he was, which is part of I think it was a National Trust
Hmm.
piece of land. And he just put a post out on social media, and it was a little bit like the Field of Dreams saying, if you build it, they will come. And he put this post out, and he didn't expect the masses to turn up, and all these people turned up, and that was their first event. And then following that, they realised that actually there was a lot that you could pick up on a beach, but perhaps they should do more underwater things.
Yeah.
Um, so again, they put social media shout outs out. And to begin with, they actually called themselves Dive Against Debris. Of course, Paddy heard, and they didn't really like the name being exactly the same as their Project Aware Dive Against Debris branding
Oh.
side of it. And so the group of volunteers at the time all sat down around the table and came up with the name Fathoms Free. So I think Fathoms linked to the deeps, and then obviously free as in free of rubbish.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the beginning of Fathoms Free. And for the first couple of years, they do paddle against plastics in coves, regular beach cleans, and educational outreach and whatnot. Um, Now, I think it was 2017 they got a boat. They managed to get a small grant, and they started focusing more on the ghost gear side of things. And then from there, it grew for a while. And then Rob actually started a business you might have heard of called Odyssey Innovation, where they recycle marine plastics and make kayaks and things like that
I
Yes.
have heard of
in
that.
the
Yeah.
Yeah.
southwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was born out of Fathoms Free. And as soon as it actually started making some money, he realized that he needed to break the two apart. And the breaking up of the Fathoms Free and the Odyssey Innovation coincided with the breaking up with him and his girlfriend as well. And that's where Fathoms Free then lost some of their numbers, if you like. So Rob ended up moving abroad. He still runs Odyssey Innovation and the Net Regeneration Scheme, but from a much nicer climate in Malta. Um, and
I think we
Natalia,
reached out to him before. I think a few years ago,
A
actually.
few years ago,
okay,
definitely. Yeah.
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 That name rings a bell now.
Mm.
yeah, and so yeah, he kind of just left it behind. He said, "You guys keep the boat, do what you want with it and whatnot," because it was part of the non-profit side. It was ring fenced as part of Fathoms Free. Um, and it was Natalia, his ex-girlfriend, that reached out to Sea Shepherd, because Sea Shepherd had actually joined Fathoms Free for some recoveries before they
Mm.
set up their own campaign. And Natalia, she kept it going. But after a couple of years, she moved on to other things. Just after she managed to help make the non-profit an actual charity, which
Mm.
sort of opened the doors to even things like gift aid make a huge difference to a small charity. And yeah, only by default, really, the last few of us that were left ended up trustees. So there's only four of us that are full-time not full time, but are trustees of the charity. And then we've probably got 5 or 6 other sort of dedicated volunteers.
Mm.
They're, experienced divers that come out with us pretty much every time we go out.
Yeah.
So we're quite a small group, really.
Yeah. So when you do you physically locate the gear, or do you have tip-offs if there's something there and then you go to recover?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both. So in the first what I'd class as the Renaissance, if you like, when the Fathoms 3 sort of relaunched and during COVID, um, a lot of it was stuff that was historical. We knew where it all was. It
Mm.
was just this accepted part of the landscape. So one of the first recoveries that I was involved with them were pots in the Fal estuary, and they were just laced everywhere. And I think there's a funny photograph somewhere that I'll have to try and dig out, but we thought there was about 10, and it turned out there were 16 pots and several hundred meters of rope entangled in the anti-submarine cables at the bottom of Fal estuary, which is about
Wow.
35 meters deep. So Natalia, bless her, and another volunteer, Emma, were on the surface on the boat, and Julian and I were at the bottom with bundles of lift bags. And it's sort of at 35 meters, you're on the limit really of how much time you're actually, you can do anything down there. So we came up with the idea of we'll just swim along the string. Every other pot we'll put a bag on, and we'll just send them all up, and we'll deal with the problem later. We just wanted to get them out of these
Mm.
coils of high tension anti-submarine cables that are tangled up in the bottom of places of the estuary. And we got to the surface, and whether or not it was a little bit of narcosis or just ignorance really or inexperience, but we'd sent 16 pots up, and we were only on a 6 meter rib. So
Right.
there was this, I mean, Natalia and Emma, they'd got most of the pots on, but then Julian and myself were a couple of big chaps. And someone took a photo of us coming back into the harbour, and the pots had just piled up on the rope onto the boat, and we're just sat on top with Natalia just sort of struggling at the helm to steer us in. There's quite a good group photo of that one, but that was the first proper recovery. Then after that, we proceeded to clear a lot of the wrecks in Falmouth Bay, areas of the Busy's Reef where we knew there was ghost gear, and then going forward, we started getting reports we do recoveries for IFCA if there's anything that
Mm.
they want recovered that they can't get their boat to. Um, we've responded to reports from volunteers that do sea search diving. That's quite a good source of information for us. We get on well with Cornwall Wildlife Trust, and their marine officer runs the sea search down here for the Marine Conservation Society.
Yeah.
So we also support them using our boat sometimes to enable them to get more dives in for data collection. And genuinely, whenever they dive anywhere that no one's dived before, they find ghost gear. Quite a few times in the last few years, we've recovered significant amounts of gear that was just sat in a remote area catching things that we would never have found had Sea Search not said, "Can we please go there and look at the seagrass, or can we go there and look at the marl beds or whatever?"
Yeah.
Um, so it's a combination really of our
Mm.
own recreational diving and then the recreational diving of others.
Whether you're preparing for a local club dive, looking forward to a warm water dive overseas, or excited about the prospect of exploring a new wreck, life is full of adventures and challenges.
But what if life's unexpected moments catch up with you?
Good point. Are you and your loved ones prepared for the unexpected?
This is where Sports Financial Services can help.
Sports Financial Services are your specialists for scuba diving life insurance, income protection, and critical illness cover.
With cover from them, you can protect your family's future whilst pursuing your passion for diving with financial peace of mind.
Their tailored plans can help ensure you and your loved ones are financially protected should an accident happen.
Their flexible policies can adapt to your unique lifestyle so you can focus on the things you love most.
So speak to one of their scuba diving specialists today and join with other individual and club divers who trust Sports Financial Services with their life insurance, income protection, and critical illness cover needs.
Visit them at www.sports-fs.co.uk or call 0345 565 0935 to find the perfect plan for you, your scuba diving activities, and your family.
Even if you have an existing policy in place, they will be happy to provide a free review to show how their cover compares.
Sports Financial Services, providing financial peace of mind, one diving adventure at a time.
Woo.
Yeah. And you get all these pots and fishing gear, take it ashore. What happens to it then?
So it's a bit of a nightmare because no one wants anything that's dirty. So a lot of the nice clean nets that wash up on the shore, there are a lot of companies now that will fight over it. Not literally, but they all want it. It's a valuable commodity. Um, you've got the Net Regeneration Scheme, Odyssey Innovation making kayaks and other goods. You've got companies like Waterhaul making sunglasses and whatnot. You've got other companies that will make or Circular and Co. I think they made some thermos mugs. They're down here in Cornwall. Lots of people make jewelry, but no one wants anything that's been sat on the floor covered in gunk for the last 5 years or whatever. So the cleaner nets we wash off and they go for recycling along with everything else. The really, really bad ones sometimes are unrecyclable. The worst thing for us to process are pots because normally they're rusted and smashed to pieces. A lot of people like them for ornaments, funnily enough, especially with the boom in people moving to Cornwall. All of a sudden, everyone wanted a nautical garden. So we actually got rid of a lot of pots and nets, and they're probably with peas or pansies growing through them somewhere at the moment. Um, but a lot of the time we have to break those down. So we'll strip the frames off. The steel frames can be recycled. But you've got lots of different types of plastic, elastic, and everything else, rubber. Pots are really quite a nightmare. But the one thing we don't really want to do is spend donors' money recovering what we class as a wildlife trap and bringing it ashore just to give to someone else to throw back in again.
Yeah.
So whilst some charities, and I can see the good in both sides, will, if the pots are very, very good condition, we'll give them straight back to a fisherman, for example. Our volunteer and support base would rather we didn't. So if we've got some that are very good condition, we'll quite often offer those as ornaments for people's gardens and whatnot, or use them for training. I took 2 trailer loads to Glastonbury Festival 2 years ago, and someone butchered them and made an art installation. So we'll try and do everything we can to repurpose them, but not in a way that means that they're just ending up back where we've just spent a lot of time retrieving them from.
Where did that idea come from then? To go to Glastonbury with a load of old pots.
Well, I think there was a connection with Sea Shepherd, and someone reached out to them and said, we want to do something with recycled items. And we had a load of pots down here with Fathoms Free. Sea Shepherd had a load of pots from recoveries they'd done in the north. So, yeah, we just kind of threw them all on the same trailer. I took some from other charities down here that have been doing beach cleans and whatnot. They'd collected all these sort of smashed up pots up. But of course, the materials are actually quite sort of strong and durable. So, yeah, there's a growing kind of movement, especially in Cornwall, it seems, where people will make art out of absolutely anything. And sometimes we don't have enough nets to go around. I've started collecting them again for the Tropical Pressure Festival that's held just outside Porthtowan. It's a plastic-free festival. It's only a little thing, 5,000 people, I think.
Oh, I think
But
I saw
they've
their
asked us to do a
website
little
earlier.
display. Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, Plastic Free Falmouth, is that them?
Oh no, Plastic Free Falmouth's another group that does beach cleans and whatnot.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that was one of the reasons why when I joined and Fathoms Free had shrunk quite a lot. They were at the stage where most people that used to volunteer with them were now volunteering with a lot of the other local marine conservation groups that do regular beach cleans. And so when we sort of had our first get together and said, what do we want to do with this charity going forward? This is a few years ago. I said, well, there's so many great groups in Cornwall doing beach cleans, twice a month. Um, there's the likes of Clean Ocean Sailing that have got a sail-powered boat. They'll sail to remote coves. There's loads of great groups doing the above the water stuff. That I said our niche really is to deal with what's out of sight and out of mind. And that's why, although our roots were in beach cleans originally, we're now, pretty much entirely focused on the underwater world, really.
Because you're in an area where there is lots of, as you said, organisations, and you've got ghost nets, ghost fishing. You've got Fourth Element, who are big on recycling and
Yeah,
on recycling stuff, based in Falmouth.
yeah.
And then you've got Gemma. What's that? Our previous guest name? Army of.
Neptune Army's rubbish cleaners, they're based in
Yes.
Wales. Yeah, Dave
Yeah,
Kennard. And
Yeah,
you've already mentioned Waterhall as well, which
yeah.
we're
yeah.
associated with, and they do fantastic stuff, about
Yeah, so I mean,
recycling.
you've got behavior change as well.
Mm.
They make quite fancy looking items, bracelets and stuff. Castaways Rope Works down in Hale make mats and dog toys and whatnot out of recycled or reclaimed ropes. Who else we got? I mentioned Clean Ocean Sailing. I mean, Cornwall Wildlife Trust are fantastic. She's moved on to the council now, so hopefully they'll make some great changes there. But a lady called Abby started the Cornwall Wildlife Trust Your Shore Network, and it brought all the small marine conservation organisations together, or those that wanted to. So St Agnes Marine Group, Mounts Bay Marine Group, Polsef, they've all got their own independent little charities,
Mm.
and then they all get together under the umbrella of the Cornwall Wildlife Trust Your Shore Network, and it means that they can pool resources, ideas, and they all organise activities and whatnot in their area. So Cornwall really is a real melting pot of
It
amazing
is,
groups
yeah.
doing amazing things.
Yeah, and I think we've had previous guests on 2 Minute Beach Clean. It's another one.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, and everybody's, it just shows again, it's not a huge mammoth effort. It's all these little bits of good things people are doing that all make for the greater good of, yeah.
Mallory Hass.
yes, in Plymouth.
Yes,
Mhm.
Yeah, with a
another
thousand
one.
tire project. Yeah.
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 So you got all these people. So do you ever link up? Do you link up with
Yes.
these people?
Yeah, no, totally. So, interestingly, a few years ago, I went to a Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Recorders Evening. It's all to do with sea search, um, and well, sea search and shore search, and it was brilliant. And whilst at this gathering, Abby, who I mentioned earlier, she did a talk about certain areas lacking in data, and I was sat next to Cornwall Wildlife Trust's marine coordinator. I can't remember his exact title now, so I might offend him, but Matt Slater. And I said to him, well, look, if you've got these areas that you need data collection, we've got a boat. We're not out every day recovering ghost gear. And your divers will also act as ghost gear survey divers for us. So
Mm.
do you want to link up? So we started working quite well with him. We've done quite a large number of dives where we'll provide the boat for nothing, because obviously we're a charity.
Yeah.
We're not able to charge or anything, but they cover their own fuel or the cost of the fuel. But we provide the assets and the skippers, and that works really well. I had a call only yesterday from the Ocean Conservation Trust, because they're looking to do a lot of seagrass survey work.
Yeah.
And I said to them when I bumped into them last year that, again, we're not a charter boat company. We're not interested in a profit, but we do have assets available.
Mm.
Um, we'd be more than happy to support them. The beginning of last year, for example, as well, some of the volunteers for BDLMR were notified of ghost gear on a seal haul out
Right.
near St Austell. So Julian, one of our skippers, in fact, our most qualified skipper, he's a charter boat skipper for a dive business in Plymouth. He took our little rib Casper and he acted as a taxi so that these volunteers from the British Divers, Marine Life Rescue, Marine Strandings Network, and another little group which we've got, the Ghost Net Busters, which is run by Lizzie near Perranporth. We took a load of those out and they clambered all over the rocks and recovered the ghost gear there. So we will openly support any of these marine groups with with their work and their causes and whatnot. Everyone's got their own little niche, but we can all make a huge difference if we sort of pull together for the greater good.
Yeah, it's good everybody working together and not having those barriers, isn't it?
What
Yeah.
you want is like a yearly get together, really, don't you? So you can all network and
Yeah,
put
well,
heads together.
the amazing thing is Cornwall Wildlife Trust do facilitate that. So it's only with their Yorkshire network, but they actually do a Yorkshire network conference once a year. Um, and we're going to that in a couple of weeks' time. So that's all the local marine groups that operate under that big umbrella. And I mean, out of that, actually, a few years ago came the Cornwall Plastic Pollution Coalition, which were loads of groups that got together to try and figure out what to do with this abundance of plastic. Because unfortunately, and councils are catching up, and I think they're getting better every year. But when Rob Thompson was at Fathoms Free and wanted to recycle the nets and whatnot, that's how Odyssey Innovation was born, because there was nothing in place for fishermen or beach clean groups to access for recycling. So we actually teamed up with Exeter. There was a recycling facility there that was willing to invest in the equipment required to be able to process the nets, because they're not very easy to deal with. You know, they get tangled in machines, they block up the shredders and whatnot. But there's no easy access to anything for us down here on the charity front. If you rock up at a recycling centre with two dumpy bags full of plastics and whatnot, it's very hard to argue that they're not commercial waste, even if you've spent ages collecting them on public beaches. So a lot of us do link in with the likes of Odyssey Innovations Net Regeneration Scheme, and they have a marine regeneration scheme as well for their plastics, bottles and oil drums and everything else that wash up. So it's a charity-led thing really in Cornwall. It's not a government approach to the plastic problem. It is lots of the little groups that have got together and said, we want to get together and make a difference.
Yeah, we used to do some river cleans, and I spoke to Norfolk County Council, and I've got a transit tipper van through my work, and I said to them, if we do a river clean and all the stuff that we haul out, can we take it to your recycling point in Norwich? And they said no, because it's be classed as fly tipping. I was like, yeah, but this has come from the river. We're clearing out. They went, no, can't do it. And it had to be done where we eventually the Green Party had this arrangement with the council in the end, that we could leave it and then they'd go pick it up, but I couldn't physically go take the stuff after it. And it's like, right, okay, but it's really good that you're getting this stuff out and then there's a home for it and it's being recycled. Because I always think with these things that if not, all you're doing is moving it from one bit of the ground to the other.
Yeah.
And the least you can, the least that happens, the better.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the volumes of fishing equipment that's lost every year is staggering. So even if, and it's not ideal, but even if we find a net that's beyond the possibilities of recycling, I mean, everything can be recycled. It's the number of man hours required.
Yeah.
And I mean, I worked long hours with work, and the other three trustees, we're all full-time employed. No one's employed at Fathoms Free.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily have the time to sit outside and spend 10 hours on a Saturday detangling, a net that might have rolled around on the seafloor and picked up no end of stones, shells, I can't remember the name of the worms now, they leave like a calcified shell on them. You'll quite often find as well with ghost gear that it attracts other ghost gear. So as well as being an indiscriminate wildlife trap, it's basically an indiscriminate litter trap. So, you might get a bundle of net that would fill a dumpy bag, but it's full of metal, it's full of hooks, it might have lead weights in there, bits of cable, other bits of plastic, and no one wants to recycle anything that's effectively contaminated, a bit like your home waste. They won't go through a black bag and pull out all the recycled stuff. They expect you to do it, otherwise their only choice is to burn it because it's too labor intensive. And so we, no matter what, we always pull it out. It's just whether or not, if it's too contaminated, we have to make the decision, can we recycle that or not? And quite often, if it's a 50-50, what I'll do is bring it home. And we've also got a space where we store our boat, and we'll just lay it out and hope nature does its thing. It's amazing what 6 months in the rain can do. It will wash a lot of the crud out, and then you can tease things apart. So we do recycle what we can, but some of it you know, is beyond help really.
Yeah, and I suppose the sun breaks it down and stuff as well, doesn't it? If it left out in the sun, especially
Yeah.
plastics and things. So do you then have to manhandle some of this stuff out, like the hooks and weights and things? Do you have to clean
Yeah.
all that out before somebody will come and pick up the nets?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we did about 3 kilometers of Spanish long lines. Well, we say Spanish long lines, they could have been long lines from anywhere, but it was a trailer load of ropes, monofilament, and fishing hooks that had
Right.
washed up on a beach as a big tangled mess.
That's
Um,
incredible. That must have been huge, isn't it?
it was, I mean, you couldn't physically pick it up. I think 4 volunteers went to get it and then dragged it across the beach and managed to roll it into the back of a pickup truck.
Wow.
And we left outside probably for a good 4 months in someone's garden. The smell must have been horrendous, to be honest.
I bet. Yeah. Woo.
But yeah, it was a good 8 hours of detangling and cuts because you'd think, right, there's no hooks in that, and you're sort of teasing it through, and you end up sort of on autopilot, and then all of a sudden you'll catch one.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the long lines are quite a good example. So you end up with like I think it's a nylon fishing line effectively tied to a metal hook, and then you'll have like a polypropylene rope, I think it is, or it might be another type of plastic. And then every now and again you'll have another kind of rope that's tied the monofilament rope on. So you'll have 5 or 6 different materials in there because you have buoys and clips and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, they can't just throw all that into a shredder to shred it
Mm.
down into a thing. You need to separate it into the individual materials. And each one of those materials they've used is been designed to last for as long as possible. So it's not as if it even goes fragile and makes it easier to pull it apart. It is just literally a
Mm.
dangerous tangled mess.
Blimey.
Do you ever get calls from fishing vessels and fishermen to say, "Oh, I've lost my gear. Can you recover it?"
Very, very rarely, to be
Stays
honest.
it. Yeah, that's kind of the answer I expected because they just kind of leave it and then they'll go and
Yeah,
buy more. And it is a huge amount of money some of these nets cost, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I mean, for us, the if you take the Cornish coast, for example, a lot of the where they're running out of literally stuff to catch on the inland, you still get a lot of the smaller boats, and they will fish the shallower waters.
Mm.
There's a lot of potting that happens in much deeper depths, and it's beyond the depths really of the sort of your average recreational diver. I mean, we use experienced divers. Most of them are on twin sets. You know, they're all trained to lift gear. They're all experienced at decompression diving, etc. But if
Mm.
you've got stuff in 60 or 70 meters of water, by the time you get such a short bottom time, you can't really do a lot. And then you
No.
move into the round of extended decompression, which is okay for survey work. But the problem is, I mean, we work on if we can, a zero decompression policy, because if you're lifting a load of gear, and then all of a sudden you attach a load of lift bags, you're gradually lifting it. If something breaks free and was to catch a diver and he had 20 minutes of deco to do and you sent him to the surface,
Yeah, dangerous.
it could cause a real problem. Um, so I think a lot of the fishermen that lose stuff a long way offshore,
Yeah.
most of it is gone no matter what we get. There are 2 or 3 potting fishermen, especially in the Falmouth area, that do say, "Oh, I've got my pots trapped in such and such a wreck again," and we'll help them out. But generally, we don't hear a lot from them. And a lot of the monofilament nets that we're recovering, we do think have been placed illegally. Ones we've recovered for IFCA definitely shouldn't have been there. And in fact, the ITV News just this week posted about, I think IFCA actually caught one of the boats in the River Plym, and they'd been going out illegally fishing for bass. But I mean, the figures are worrying, really. You think a couple of years ago, well, it might be 3 years ago now, there was a report released, and it said about 2% of all fishing gear every year was lost, globally. Um, I mean, that I can't remember what the figures were, but it was millions of pots and billions of hooks, like enough line to
Mm.
go to the moon and back or whatever it was, and that's what they know about. And then you've got all these people throwing in nets that shouldn't be. I mean, you can go on eBay and buy 100 meters of monofilament net ready to throw in for about 50 quid delivered to your front door. And so you think of the price of like crawfish and lobsters and whatnot.
Yeah.
it is kind of an expendable thing. Although fishermen will argue, well, no one wants to lose any of their gear. If they're fishing illegally, they're not going to ask anyone
Mm.
to get it back again. So, you'll see all around the country these monofilament nets that are washing in on shores. And, I always ask myself how many of those actually are legal nets.
Mm.
And, they're not, everyone goes, oh, it's the super trawlers in the channel, but the super trawlers aren't trawling monofilament gill nets behind them. A lot of these nets are small boat deployed nets targeting, high value fish that perhaps they shouldn't be.
Yeah. What
Mm.
is it about your area where you live that attracts all these organisations, all these volunteers, all doing great stuff? I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't think we've got that around our area. We have
We're
got
on.
the odd people do the odd thing, but
Yeah.
if you look at your coastline on that Cornish coastline, Devon, even up to like where Mike Kennett is, you've got a lot of people all concentrated in one area, and it doesn't. I don't think you've got that replicated in other areas of the UK.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I don't know. I mean, with my other hat, I'm still involved with. Well, they've changed their name now to the Paul Watson Foundation UK. They were
Yeah,
formerly Sea Shepherd UK, and Sea Shepherd UK or Paul Watson Foundation UK, as they're called now, don't run that many beach cleans in Devon and Cornwall because there's so many beach clean groups. Yet you go to parts of Wales, Bournemouth, the northeast, and they can run two a month and have a huge turnout and collect tons of rubbish because there aren't other groups doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the attraction is down here, whether it's a slightly different demographic in the sense that there's a few people with more time. I honestly don't know. I mean, they've all got beaches that
hmm.
are beautiful when they're clean.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Narc, Dave Kennard,
Mm.
who you've spoken to before. I've actually got a meeting with him tomorrow because we're going to do the dive show together in March.
Oh,
Have a
yeah.
little
Oh,
stand
cool.
there.
See you there then.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to hopefully do a talk on the Saturday morning. He's going to do one on the Sunday morning.
Oh, brilliant.
Um, because Mark Evans, that does the show,
Yeah.
actually went out with Narc last year.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think he got caught the bug. So although Fathoms Free and Narc are both in the same boat of being skint charities, really. We're not big enough to attract the big donations or anything. Mark said, well, look, we're going to end up with the odd space. Would you like to come and promote what you do? And I think the idea, sorry, my mouth's drying up.
Because
I think the
Miranda,
idea of
Miranda Christopher.
yeah, she's been there with
yes,
Dave as well.
yeah, he's quite lucky. He's got some good ambassadors. We don't have any of those down here.
Well, here's the start.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're putting the name out there now to loads of people. So,
But no, Mark did say, he said what would be great is to encourage people to do things without a flag because NARC was started by someone that just wanted to make a difference. Fathoms
Yeah.
Free was started by a group of people that none of them knew what they were joining that August afternoon or whenever it was, 10 years ago. It was just there was a shout out, this beach is a mess. Who wants to come and help out? And people
yeah.
turned up.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of people and they say, oh, I'd really like to get involved and do what you do. And we get people messages. Every now and again, we'll have the odd post that does quite well. And then you'll get people from the Midlands say, oh, I'd love to come and do a ghost gear recovery. But it's not really viable when we'll do them at short notice on a rib that can only get four people on.
Yeah.
Hence why we're at the moment doing this crowdfunder for a larger rib because we want to be able to do more, but we just need the tools to do it. But what we'd like to do is encourage people to do things without a flag or
Mm.
start your own thing. There's a guy actually in the northeast, Clean Planet, or his little group. He's called Clean Planet.
Okay.
He wouldn't even know me, or he wouldn't know that I probably would recommend him. But he's another example of someone that one day just thought, I want to make a difference. And now he's out there doing ghost gear recoveries off of the coast of his little area. I can't remember where he's to, Redcar, possibly
Yeah. Yeah.
somewhere in the northeast. And he does the same thing. He'll do ghost gear recoveries, beach recoveries. He's got a small following now, and it really does show that you don't need to do it under the banner of a big organization. You can start with your local dive club. with a group of friends, and you can, anyone can go out and make a difference in their local area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Dave Kennett said to us, look after your backyard, look after your backyard.
Yeah,
And that's
It
very
all
true, isn't it? If
starts there,
everyone
doesn't
looks
it?
after their backyard, that would cover a whole massive area, and that's brilliant. So how does the process work? So you get a phone call, you get an email, somebody says they spotted some nets floating about. Then from that sort of time, is it like a couple of days before you manage to get out?
it it all depends. I mean, the one thing we've got being on a peninsula down here is like issues with the weather.
Yeah.
Um, so what we'd like to do is get it as soon as we can the coming weekend. We have had instances where we have gone out the next day, especially if it's something, or even that evening, if it's on a beach and it's tidal, providing we get the call at the right time. There's nothing worse when someone says, "Oh, yesterday afternoon, just as the tide was coming in, I spotted such and such on the beach." And you think, brilliant. So the tide's been in and out twice since you've let us know, which is not their fault necessarily. They might not have known
Yeah.
to give us a shout. But if it's a diver, for example, and the net's caught on wreckage, normally you can be quite sure that it will still be there just by the very nature of the way nets are. And the same with pots. They might move during a storm, but as soon as they're snagged on something, we can go and get them. So we'll assess the sort of the hazard. So Sea Search and Natural England found a net. I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. We didn't get that one straight away because it had bundled up on the floor, and to be fair, it was fairly benign. It was the summer, and we had other targets that we were going after. So that one we actually left, and it was just off Pendennis Point in Falmouth. We've had other ones where we've literally jumped on it. So the one that IFCA reported to us, not last November, the November before, we literally cancelled our Saturday plans. We had this report from IFCA, and they basically said, look, we've got this net. It's in an area where one shouldn't be. Our boat's out of action. We'd really want someone to go and get it sooner rather than later. And so the four of us cancelled our plans, went out that morning. And that actually reduced my other half to tears. So Elle was another trustee of the charity, and she got in the water. I was driving the boat, and it was full of cormorants. And so the birds had seen a fish that were trapped in the net, that was fairly shallow. So of course they dive to get the fish, stick their head through, and so I mean, we've got quite a nasty looking post of that on our social media, but those kind of things. If it's monofilament, we'll jump on it as fast as we can because monofilament is the worst.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people say, "Oh, monofilament's fairly selective because the smaller fish swim through." Well, yeah, that's brilliant, but everything bigger than that, from birds to dolphins, don't swim through, and both birds and dolphins need to breathe air on the surface. So, you know, anything that gets caught in a monofilament net, whether it's an animal or a diver, really doesn't stand much chance at all. We all dive with our line cutters and knives and whatnot, but I swam into a net in on the Bizzies when looking for another net, ironically, during a survey dive. And this net was actually active, and luckily I only got my sort of head caught in it, but we were swimming along. It was a really really fine mesh and not very good visibility, and annoyingly in England, our rules aren't that great on buoys. So in Scotland, you need to have a bloody great big buoy and a flag on it and whatnot. Whereas down here, they'll sometimes put like a 5 gallon or a 5 litre screen wash drum on the end of it or something to hold the end up. So we jumped in on an area of reef where we'd had a net reported to us. It was supposed to have been led along the floor. So team of three, we were swimming along, probably 3 or 4 meters off the floor because the visibility wasn't great, shining a torch around, in a bit of an arc as we were swimming along trying to locate this net. And then the next thing, I just felt this sort of pressure on my mask and whatnot, and I'd swum into a large monofilament net suspended mid-column. And it's amazing that as soon as you start going like that, all of a sudden your dive computer's caught in it. It all caught in the buckles of my mask. My mask was all flooded. And you can stop. And I just literally had to wait for a buddy to come along and sort of unhook me and whatnot. But you
Scary
could
stuff.
probably quite easily get two people in the same net. And I think as soon as you've lost mobility of both hands, which wouldn't be that difficult, um, yeah, you'd be absolutely, well, you'd be in trouble, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So
And
do you have insurance for all this?
yeah, we're properly insured for the work we do. And I mean, that is one thing actually. If you are going to do more than dives against debris, if you want to call it that, underwater litter picks and whatnot, it would be worthwhile ensuring you get some proper training. I mean, we get most of our divers through a variety of different courses with regards to well, we'd like technical divers or those that have had some technical training. We don't want anyone that's done a 200-meter cave dive or anything. You don't need that, but you need to be able to work in teams and actually communicate properly underwater. Buoyancy is super key because you don't want anyone that's going to stir the bottom up. Dave at NARC has a slightly different approach, but he's in a different environment. But he's like, if there's a shopping trolley that's stuck, you want to be down there and rolling around. But when we're sort of dealing with nets suspended in water or tangled on a reef, we want good buoyancy. And as I say, communication is key. SDI developed a course with Sea Shepherd a few years ago, and it's one that we've now started to adopt as well. And it does discuss various sort of techniques and things, and then our insurance covers us for ghost gear recoveries, providing everyone's at a minimum level of, I think our insurance is rescue diver or dive leader and above.
Right.
So it just ensures that everyone, is of a certain
Do you
grade.
have to be a technical diver?
Not necessarily. We have a lot of people that will dive on single cylinder. We do insist on a stage, so you've got a completely separate backup supply of gas, and we only use that gas for filling the lift bags.
Right.
So about 4 years ago, when we kind of had a lot of changes within Fathoms 3, became a charity. A few new people came on board. The only original person at Fathoms 3 now is John. He was there from the beginning. He's the chairman. But the other three of us that are now trustees, we implemented quite a few changes, and we no longer use, for example, open bottom lift bags. They're perfectly all right if you want to send up a bag of rubbish or a porthole or something like that you found some treasure. But actually, if you're doing a lot of controlled lifting, the newer lift bags with the inflation nipple on that you use a low pressure hose to inflate are a lot safer. Your hand doesn't have to go inside underneath the bag where the webbing is. So you're on the outside of the bag. So if it does all of a sudden take off, you're not caught. And it's a lot easier to control the amount of air you're putting in and less likely to get a free throw. Whereas if you're using an open bottom bag and a regulator, which people were doing, 10 years ago, there is an opportunity for something to go wrong. Either your regulator could get caught in the bag, you could end up with a free flow, and you don't want to be using your back gas for it for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And it's surprising actually how quickly you can run down a stage cylinder. I used to only take a 7 litre in, but when you do the sums and then you end up losing a bit as you're trying to fill the bag, it's very, very easy to end up with an empty 7 litre cylinder after 45 minutes of filling bags in sort of 20-25 meters.
So people on twin sets, they take down a separate cylinder just for the lift bags.
Yeah. So we all divers, whether they've got a twin set or a single, will take a separate minimum of a 7 litre stage just to fill bags with. I'm a little bit anal, and I'll make sure that my stage has got the same as what I've got on my back gas, which sounds a little bit wasteful, but it just means that I don't have to do any sums or any messing around with my dive computer. If I had a problem with my back gas, what I've got in my stage is exactly the same. So it might cost a couple of pounds more to fill, but it just means that if we're doing a dive, because we insist on nitrox, some of the other charities don't. But just to give us longer bottom time and a much bigger buffer, in case anything did go wrong, then everyone's on 32%. Some people like to go a little bit more. We used to have a guy that worked for a dive shop that doesn't exist anymore, and he would insist on 40% for everything, even if his computer was going nuts. He was like, no, I don't have to pay for it. I'm going to fill everything up at 40%. And Reese, if you're watching this, but he had a point. He said, most of the diving we were doing was around the 20 meter mark at the time actually in Grimsby that particular year. Because we used to do a lot with Sea Shepherd up in the northeast, or the Paul Watson Foundation. So we do our own diving down here with Fathoms Free, and then we travel up there every few weeks as well and get involved with them.
Yeah.
And he would forever turn up with a different gas to everyone else, but at least it was a stronger mix and not a weaker one. But it's good. It's good to try and have everyone on the same gas.
So you don't
So
have a regulator on the pony bowl?
yeah, no, we have a regulator as well. Yeah, so you have
We do.
just a reg with your first stage and then a second stage and then a low pressure hose,
Okay.
so that if you need it, you've got it as a backup gas, but you use the low pressure hose for filling the
I got you. Yeah.
lift bags.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Why not? As all another bailout just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds, it's quite an intense operation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all doing good stuff.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah. So if people want to find out more about what you're doing, where's the best place for them to go and look you up?
Yeah, so our website really is a reflection of our social media in some ways. It's something we will revamp, but we've got a website, but we're mostly active on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
We've very recently set up a LinkedIn page, which has probably got about 5 followers and nothing on it at the moment. Or I think a video that a charity made for us in the summer actually
That's how we
is on
connected.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, it
LinkedIn.
was actually, yeah. Jim, one of our volunteers, reached out to you, didn't he?
LinkedIn's good because you'll get, if you work on that, there's a lot of researchers and a lot of people in marine science, all sorts, who I think you'll find quite handy to connect with, and a lot of different firms, and Rob Thompson's firm is on there as well, and yeah, it's definitely worth one to build up.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
So
I'll have to start putting some posts on.
yeah, definitely. And looking forward, what's the future for Fathoms Free? I know you're trying to get a bigger boat, aren't you?
Yeah, so we were quite fortunate through the connection with Sea Shepherd, or Ports and Foundation as they call themselves now, that when they got their hard boat from the Northeast a few years ago, they had a rib spare, and they let us be, what do you call it? We looked after it and
Custodians.
used it. Custodians, that's the word. So we were custodians of that rib for a few years. Um, it was a lot bigger than our one, a lot wider, a lot longer and wider. It really did make a difference. We stored it, maintained it. It was there if they needed it, but they're looking to do more in Scotland this year. So that
Okay.
rib's going back, and the rib that Fathoms brought in 2017 is very small. Um, and we've done a few recoveries with it in the last couple of months, but it was actually quite noticeable that we needed a bigger rib. So we found a rib with quite a nice history, which you can learn about on the crowdfunder. It done the rounds in Cornwall. It was an absolute wreck. We basically literally pulled it out of a hedge. But we are renovating that, and returning it to its former glory, so that we can have about 8 divers on it if we're doing survey work, 8 divers and
Wow.
2 sets of gear. But then at the same time, if we've only got our team of 3 divers and 2 crew, we've got more room for ghost gear. So that's our mission at the moment, is to try and have that ready for Easter.
And
Yeah.
how
The
much do
aim
you
is to have it
need?
ready before the clocks change.
How
What's that,
much
sorry?
do you need? How much do you need?
Our target, or our minimum target, is 10,000. Um, the trailer's knackered, and really it could do with a new trailer, and they're about 5. So our stretch target is 15. Our
Yeah.
our main target is 5, is 10. But we're hoping that once we reach 5, we'll qualify for a particular match fund that targets the kind of work that we do. It's
Okay.
a fund aimed at charities that have a low turnover, which we qualify for. Which is quite nice because we don't qualify for anything like the Big Give. The Big Give need you to have a turnover, I think, if it's more than £25,000 a year,
Mm.
which means all the smaller charities, unfortunately, don't have access to money because they don't have enough money already, which is a bit backwards.
Mad.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we do run on a shoestring. So every penny helps. And yeah, what we're trying to do at the moment is get this bigger boat in the water, so we can do more of what we were doing already, and then provide more support to the likes of Cornwall Wildlife Trust, Sea Search, and all the other organisations that we've worked with over the last few years.
Yeah.
So it'll make a massive difference to marine conservation in Cornwall once we
Yeah.
can get this boat in the water.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll put the link into the show notes, and hopefully people will take an interest and head over to the website and give a little bit. Anything will help, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's great. So all of our guests, we ask 3 questions. So our first question: if you could take 3 people underwater, who would you take and why? And they don't need to be divers. It's just the principle of getting them underwater.
Yeah, well, the first two, and it sounds a little bit cheesy. One is my mother. She's never dived, and she's not in the right health to be able to do it now. Um, because she sees photographs and what I've been up to over the years. She's fascinated by it, but she's never actually seen it. And another one is my little nephew's got CF, so he's really into the underwater world, but unfortunately, I don't think he'd ever get signed off to dive.
Right.
So I'd like to take them both underwater because it's one thing seeing pictures, but I've never been able to actually explain to anyone in the family that hasn't dived that being in a 3D environment where you're flying and you can go up over the wreck, down through the wreck, above a fish, under a fish, it's a phenomenal experience. And I think it's something that we take we take for granted a little bit. Because we are privileged to be able to dive. So they were 2. And the third one is if I could go back in time, I'd love to dive with Jacques Cousteau and some of his sort of first exploratory dives.
Yeah.
I think to do something and see something for the first time would be phenomenal. I mean, we've dived reefs that we think no one's ever dived before. We look on a map and go, oh, no one ever dives there. We might find something there, so we'll do a recreational dive there with the club.
Yeah.
We're the first ones to see that bit of reef, but it's not the same as seeing, some of the sites that he would have saw for the first time.
No. Good
Right.
choices.
Yeah.
So what gets you out of your comfort zone?
Um, Public talking. To be honest.
We've done all right so far.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hate standing up in front of people. My day job, I have to present design work and drawings to customers. And on a one-to-one like this, I can talk and that's fine. I get the worst stage fright ever. Um, my mouth will dry up. I forget what I'm going to say. And I think it stems from the first talk I did a few years ago where my other half, she said, oh, you'll be fine. All your notes are on the laptop underneath the slides. And then we got up onto the stage and the laptop was going to be sat behind you. So the audience is at the front, and my laptop was behind me, and I could look at the main screen and see what I'd presented, and I couldn't remember a single thing that I'd written underneath that I was going to say.
No.
So I winged it for half an hour, and it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I really don't like standing up in front of people.
Yeah. Well, that's what we say. Wing it. It'll be all right. Wing it.
Wing it. This is a professional outfit. What are you talking about?
Well, you're being listened to in 154 countries at the moment. No, that's really good. And then our final question: if you had a billboard that you could put out to the entire world, so on the billboard you could use an image and some writing, video. What would you put on your billboard and why?
I think it would be nets. I think it'd be quite a hard-hitting one of the impact of what we turn a blind eye to as a population, really. There's this weird romantic thing with the fishing industry, and I don't know if Brexit had anything to do with it and all the rhetoric, but we banned land-based wildlife traps years ago because they're indiscriminate. We didn't agree with it, and people could see it, and people didn't want to see a fox in a snare or a bear with a clamp round its foot. But actually, as a population, as a society, we seem to be quite happy with the destruction that's caused that
It's
we
true,
don't have
actually.
to look at. And over the years, the worst nets we recover are monofilament nets. Scotland have actually banned them, I believe, on their inshore fishing. Whereas down here, they're just full of birds. There's a video online of when we turned up to get a seal out of a net. The seal had died already. And 2 of our volunteers started pulling the net in, and up came a dolphin, some cat sharks. It's they're indiscriminate, and there's no such thing as a species specific monofilament net.
No.
Anything that's bigger than that hole can get caught, whether it's birds, dolphins, seals, or whatever. And it'd be good if if more people were consciously aware of it, I think it'd change public perception quite a lot, because no one really pays any attention to it apart from divers.
Yeah.
And even then, I think until you start seeing more and more of it, it's still quite easy to say, oh, it's what do they call it in war, like a collateral damage or something, like
Yeah.
an acceptable. But it is bad. I mean, there's I think the estimate's like 150,000 seals and cetaceans are killed every year in ghost nets, and about 300,000 in active fishing nets.
Wow.
So that's like just under 500,000. That's estimated as well. I mean,
Mm.
there's probably a lot of fishing boats that don't say, "Oh, today we caught a killer whale." They're not going to report it. They'll cut it free and
Yeah.
throw it back over. But
No.
yeah, the figures are staggering that we know about. Um, so yeah, that'd be my billboard. It'd be quite a sad one. It wouldn't be anything nice, but I would
Yeah.
like to not have to keep pulling dead birds and dolphins out of nets, really.
Yeah.
So,
Draws attention to it.
yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, very good answers.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, a bit of a sad note to end up.
No, but I think sometimes you've got to have a shocker to, make people sit up and think they need to take action. So,
Yeah.
it all starts, like with a simple beach clean, doesn't it? Like we've seen, and then it just escalates and the cause, yeah.
Just because we don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't happen,
No.
Yeah.
and it's good what you're doing. It's good that there's people like yourselves and these other organizations around, and the businesses that takes the nets afterwards, and it's good that all this is in place. So yeah, thanks for all you do on that.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for the opportunity as well to try and reach a wider audience
Yes.
Yeah,
than
Yeah. No,
just
definitely
the
put it
few
out there.
people down here.
yeah. And I think, if there are divers out there and non-divers, they can all do their little bit to help,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
supporting you financially or, sort of getting involved and doing something as simple as a beach clean.
It's good that you're going to the Go Dive show as well, because I think
Mm.
doing that with Dave, I think that's a great opportunity. And again, as we wasn't aware of you till your colleague contacted us on LinkedIn. We wasn't aware of you, and it's because you're the other side of the country, and yeah, most people have heard of Sea Shepherd. They spend a lot of money on their profile, and it's good that you'll be there to raise your profile and raise awareness to all this and go on. And I think you'll get more support as well. I think from that, so I think it's good idea to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
great.
No, well, we're really lucky, really, that Mark's given us the opportunity.
Yeah,
Because we don't have the marketing budget. Well, we don't have any budget. We just get by. So we don't have money to spend on attending shows or anything like that. If we get invited anywhere, it's brilliant.
yeah,
Um, there's no paid staff at the charity, no social media specialists, marketing specialists, or anything like that. Um, so yeah, it's every opportunity's
yeah. Well,
really
we'll
appreciated.
definitely tag you in and do our bit for you. So hopefully that'll bring you some support and some money as well towards your this new rib.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, it's been great having you on the BiG Scuba podcast. So
Yeah.
thank you very
No,
much.
thank you. It's been
Nice
brilliant.
one.
Thank you.
Well, we want to say thank you to Luke for giving us his time. Talk about himself, about his diving history, and talk about Fathoms Free and their crowdfunding project that they've got going on. So if you listen to this and you got a spare fiver, you know what to do with it. Send it their way, and because they're doing great things.
Yeah. And it's great, talking to somebody that's passionate about recovering all this, rubbish in the water.
Yeah, I think a few things come out of that. I think one, it's really good what they're doing. Two, there's just like if we plotted a map of that whole area, Cornwall, Devon, bit of what South Wales and further along South England, so many people we've spoken to along there and that we
Yes.
know of, and who he's mentioned as well, who we don't know, and there'll be a whole line, I'm sure, all around that whole coastline of people all doing great stuff, and it's good that the area. I think you said the council, wasn't it?
Yes.
Have
Yeah.
a
Cornwall.
yearly get-together where they can put the heads together and stuff like that.
The Cornwall Wildlife Trust. So it's good that there's that organisation that brings everyone together under their individual umbrellas as a bigger cause.
If you listen to this, it'd be really good. If you listen to this in different parts of the UK, it'd be really good to hear from you and say, hey, this is similar things are going on in our area. Because, like, are they going on? I don't know.
No, I mean,
they
well,
are.
let's take our area, East Anglia. We've been involved in river cleans, beach cleans, but it's not something that you
I
see
know
like
they do the Rob Spray and
sea
Dawn
search.
Watson do sea search, don't they?
Yeah.
There's a bit of that, and as you said, they seagrass a bit further in Essex goes on.
Yes. Yeah.
Trying to think about anything else, and
No. And I think possibly over COVID times, lockdown, it was something people did more of, and there was more awareness. Look at us, we did beach cleans, didn't we? And made art out of plastic.
but look what's happened to the river cleans
Yeah, that's all gone, isn't it?
since our good friend Richard has retired. They're kind of died a death. And it's when I had before we got involved in the river cleans, and I spoke to Broadlands Council and Norfolk Council and City Council. None of them wanted to get involved. And you think the politics that we then discovered that was going on, even though it was organised by the Norwich Green Party, and it was a non-political event. There was no politics. It's just they were organising these regular cleans, and there's so much politics going on behind the scenes. It's like, why is the politics getting involved when people are just trying to do a good deed?
Good stuff, yeah, and that says an awful lot. There's so much noise that the real focus is lost.
Which is bizarre, isn't it? It's not a competition. And you think about the ghost nets, two ghost nets organisations that now we don't know, we don't step on toes, but apparently they didn't get on or they don't get on.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
the main thing is to get the nets get took out. I don't want to be naive about it, but surely that's to get the aim. And you shouldn't be at war against. You shouldn't be at war together. You should be working together for the greater good.
Yeah, it's personalities,
That's
isn't
my
it?
view.
Clashing and having different agendas, but
Egos get in the way. I think that's a lot of it.
probably, yeah. But on the plus side, Cornwall, Devon, it just seems to be quite an infectious thing, doesn't it? People start something.
You know about fishing and stuff and fish. So is that more concentrated area for sea fishing around that way?
Well, the
Because I
south.
thought all the way around. I thought
No, the South Coast is obviously they've got warmer waters, so there is places like Brixham. I mean that's a huge port, so there is a abundance of focused fishing in that area because of the quality of the water. So it's just a natural thing. But there are other fishing ports around. They might not be such. Maybe on the South Coast there's shallower waters. So you do get more inshore boats rather than the big super trawlers that you get, in the Channel and up the coasts. But it was interesting in him saying about illegal fishing because fish is so valuable in terms of its cost. It's probably more expensive than meat when you compare kilo for kilo. So you can see why there is an illegal market and again, illegal fishing gear that's getting out there.
But then when you look at land animals that are caught, farmed, so you say fish is more per kilo, more expensive. But then you think about all the red tape that if when a cow is born, and it's tagged, and that by the time that cow then eventually goes to slaughter at some stage, that cow is tracked from birth all the way through to slaughter.
Which
Right.
doesn't happen in the fishing industry other than farmed
But
salmon.
you think that would make the meat more expensive because of all the work that's going on for a farmer behind the scenes, and I suppose chickens and things like that, where compared to fish, most of that is all naturally caught, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's unpredictable. You've got the seasons of the fish, the sea, the weather. So it's, at some point, massive storm like we've had, then there's no fishing that takes place, and fish becomes, a valuable commodity, and it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just thought all this stuff would be claimed, because all these things must cost money. You get, what did you say? Not 6 kilometers of rope had to pick up.
yeah.
And do you think that's huge? That's a massive amount.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because he said monofilament was so cheap, and that's obviously, like you can buy it for £50. But I guess it's more like the inshore boats. It's valuable gear to them, and they do everything to maintain it and protect it. And if it snags on when you see these TV programs, what the guys that do, I can't remember what it's called now, but they'll do anything they can to save their fishing gear if they snag, a wreck or a rock. So I suppose it's a bit of a black market, all this.
Yeah, well, that's something I don't really know much of, really. So, being a gardener.
No, but if anybody's got any views, let us know. So, because it's an education. We don't. So I suppose on our East Anglian coastline, we don't see an awful lot of fishing gear washed up, do we? We do see the occasional ropes and bits of net, bits of gear, but when you compare it to Cornwall and Devon, they're having huge nets wash up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not. I know some guys from Crystal Seas. They got called out. What was it last year? I think up to Sheringham or somewhere to go pick some rope up that had been washed in. I think that's the only, unless that's happening and we don't know about it. It's always possible. That's the only one I can really think of recent time.
Yeah.
But when you go to Southwold, Walberswick, anywhere around on our coast, you don't really see it, do you? We picked some up in Walberswick a little bit, didn't we, during COVID?
Yeah, bucket.
That was a
and
bucket,
rope.
wasn't it? Just some rope, and that was it.
Yeah, but not. It was more.
You still got it, haven't you?
Yeah, it's in the garden. The rope I used to hang my dry suit when I'm drying it outside.
So recycle.
It.
There we go.
I'm not going to throw it away. So yeah, but it's an eye opener, isn't it? And what you can't see, you don't know about. And people like talking to Luke has brought that into perspective and put some reality into it of what is actually out there.
Yeah, you are limited on what you can do with this stuff because you can't really put it to much use as such because of like you took 6 kilometers of rope, right? Well, rope comes in handy for all sorts of stuff. You could use it for this and that, but actually, if you was using it on where there's any risk involved, the history of it would be called into question.
Yeah.
So you can't really use it apart from art stuff and things like that where there's no danger of using it.
No, but again, it's great that there are these companies like Odyssey Innovation, all these people. Waterhall is a hugely successful business because they're doing this recycling.
They make sunglasses out of it. What about that?
Yeah, litter picking gear. It's just, and it's not just sunglasses, prescription frames. So, it's really good that you can sit in a pair of spectacles and know that that's recycled fishing gear.
Yeah. Oh, funny enough, didn't we have a link for that?
Yes, we do. So
link in the show notes.
Put that in the show notes as well. So, but yeah, any opinions or comments, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you very much to Luke for coming on. Thanks for Fathoms Free for letting him come on and doing what they do. And we also say a big thank you to Narc at 90 who help support these episodes and make it all possible. They are beyond technical.
Yes. So thank you very much, Narc at 90.
Yeah.
And don't forget to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, and you can keep up to date with what we're up to over the coming months.
Yeah, and we've mentioned insurance. Why have we mentioned insurance as well? Because we've teamed up with another company called Sports Financial Services, and they're also sponsoring us as well. You've probably heard now the advert. So look at their website as well. So thank you to them for sponsoring this episode too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was episode 196.
And that was
the BiG Scuba podcast. And thank you for listening and downloading.
Now that does wrap up today's episode of the BiG Scuba podcast. But if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what. If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.